Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Diamond Hands podcast. Today, we are so excited to have Dr. Tiphany Hall. She is the Chief Growth Officer from Aesthetic Record, the EMR. Thank you. Hi, Tiphany.
Thank you for having me on. I've been watching all your episodes and hearing all your awesome advice. I'm glad that I actually get to be here with you. I feel very, very special.
Yeah, I'm so blessed. It's like, I talk to my clients sometimes and some of the newer ones, they're like, oh, who should I go with? And guys, again, if you even listen to her podcast, this is not an advertisement, but I'm like aesthetic record is the way to go because so many of my other friends and clients that do, have their med spas, they use aesthetic record. So
Well, and nobody's perfect. We all have our bag of good and bad, but on the
exactly.
aggregate, I think that we're doing a lot of very positive things. At least fingers crossed, I hope so.
Yeah, well, it's just like men, right? I mean, you have the good, you have the bad, and you have to choose how much bad you want to keep, but overall they're good. It's just,
Yeah. I just said this morning to a guy on an email, let's think about all this in context. The world is not ending, Chicken Little. We're not all going to die here. One little button is not working, but everything else in your practice is. So take a chill pill and get your blood pressure down.
you know what I'm saying? It's like that's why they have the tech department. They'll fix
Exactly.
it. Chill. So, I know we see you everywhere and you've been in the aesthetics industry for quite some time. So let's go back to the beginning. Tell us about, just even tell us about maybe something that people don't know about you per se, from your background. Tell us a little bit about, how you came to get your MBA and your PhD and some of the things that influenced your life decisions to be so high performing.
Well, there are so many, I think about that all the time, those critical decision points where you're like, this could go really great or really, really bad. And I've had
Yeah.
lots of those. But I think you mentioned my MBA, and I think that's a really interesting story for me because my mother passed away when I was 22, 23. I'd gone to
Mm,
college. I was a very smart kid, valedictorian, scholarships, whole thing. And so you go to college thinking, I'm this genius. I'm going to be successful. I'm going to be, Bill Gates on year 4 when I graduate, go out and get an amazing job.
yeah.
Well, newsflash, guys, that's not reality. So I went to work, learned a lot about management, worked for enterprise, washed cars, did the whole thing. And my mom passed
Wow.
away. And I thought, I've got to move home. I have a sister. She has kids. Her husband was in Iraq. I've got to be in Arkansas again to help support my family. So I went
Mhm.
home and I was bored to death. And I thought, I'll go back to school. Why not do it? Go get an MBA. It'll be fun. And I ended up
Wow.
working at a college as a grad assistant, and I got to teach a lot, and I fell in love with
Mhm.
teaching. So I finished my MBA, which was an amazing experience. If you are listening, go do it. Invest the time;
Yeah.
it's so worth it. But I fell in love with teaching and learning, and so I was going to be a financier. I was going to go into banking and finance. My degree is in
Mhm.
that. But I took one class in college about organizational development in my MBA about leadership and about people being a human asset, human capital. And I
Mhm.
was like, I'm
Mhm.
hooked. I'm done. This is it. So I finished my
Wow.
MBA and went to get a PhD in that topic immediately. And I focused really on that ever since. So all the jobs I've had have been about people development, getting
Mhm.
better in your career, how to motivate them to be more satisfied in their job, processes,
Mhm.
SOPs, really thinking about people on your balance sheet as an asset. So I've spent
Yeah.
the bulk of my professional life doing that. And I kind of ended up in aesthetics by accident. We owned a CrossFit gym when I was
Mhm.
married, a different podcast entirely. Uh,
Well, we both been there.
Thank God that's over. But when I was married, we owned a CrossFit gym, and a person walked in my gym one day and said, Hey, I work for this company that does Botox kind of things, filler kind of things. And they need a sales rep in Arkansas. And you look like you kind of are into that. And I was in pharma at the time. Would you want to put in
Mhm.
an application? So I applied for Galderma. And in 4 days, I had an interview, flew to Dallas, had a second interview, and got hired. So those four
What?
days, that chance note of him saying, Hey, Nestle just bought us. We have an opening. Do you want to try for this job? Landed me here 7 years later. So it was divine intervention. And I was a sales rep in Little O, Arkansas, middle of
Wow.
nowhere, and grew a territory and had such a love for training that I got really involved in the training part of it. And
Mhm.
that's when kind of the professional relations and gain and all those things really took off. And
Mhm.
it's been history ever since. So that's how I landed here. But, in the course of it, I've met some incredible people,
Yeah.
amazing doctors, nurses, PAs, office staff, administrators. Like this industry has consumed my whole life. And I am
Mhm.
incredibly grateful for it. And I think it's growing and evolving so fast that you and I both are kind of just buckling up and holding on for the ride. It's like a roller coaster at Six Flags. Like, what's going to happen next? And so I think,
Yeah.
if you want to be in a fast moving, crazy world, go into technology and aesthetics. So I
Yeah,
got a double whammy on my plate right now, but it's a
I
team thing.
know. Yeah, because you're all about, the technology and with that, you were named even, the top 25 woman in tech. Like, tell us more about that and how that came about and how your love of tech really grew over time. Like, MBA, PhD, random foray into aesthetics, and then top 25 woman in tech. Tell us.
Well, I pushed back on getting an iPhone for like 10 years. I had a BlackBerry until they made me get an iPhone. So the fact that I'm here is kind of shocking. But when I was with Galderma, well, actually before Galderma, I had built some apps. I'd worked in technology. I'd built a learning platform on a phone, like micro learning. I had done some very technology enabled things as a consultant. I worked for Walmart as a consultant for many years. And so I was really into technology anyway. But as I went into the Galderma role, I realized that there was this huge gap. Training, you can't scale a human. You can't even scale 300 faculty members. There's just, there's 30,000 accounts in aesthetics. There's probably 500 really good trainers in the whole industry. And so you do the math, it's just not possible. And I think the same is with technology for software and in practice. You can't be everywhere all the time. And so for me, technology was a necessity. It's not because I love technology, which I do now, but it's because to scale and to grow and to build the scope of a practice or your job or your career, you have to duplicate your efforts in a way that is clonable, scalable, replicatable. And so the only method we have is technology. So I really invested in that early on with Galderma to see how to scale that. We had built Lucy Live, which is now Gia. We had done a lot of things with our process on signing up for trainings and looking at ROI. And so it really just became part of my everyday job, almost inadvertently, and a little
Wow.
bitty bit over time that when this came open, it was like we need a person who can do aesthetics, who can do technology, who can do marketing, who can be on camera, who can do, financing and look at our balance sheet. Hey, Tiphany,
Yeah.
you can do all these things. How about you? How about you take over? And so when I started here, we launched a conference like the first month I was employed at Aesthetic Record. I
Wow.
did on the back end behind the scenes like a maniac. But I think when I started, we had about 350 really active accounts, about 900 signed up. Now we have about 3,000. So we have a lot of
My
clinics
God.
using our software, and the pressure is immense, as you as you might assume.
Yeah.
But I think technology and look at your job, when it comes to risk and numbers and money, to be able to look at something and quickly query an answer and know if you're losing or winning this month, where your
Yeah.
inventory is at, if things are walking out of the door, if your folks are performing, if there's an intent to turn over, you can look at that by their satisfaction scores, their inventory usage. I can predict if
Hmm.
you're going to quit your job based on how you
Oh my
perform.
God.
If there's all the things that technology gives us, because it's like AI, it's smarter than we are. You can think about
Yes.
cancer diagnosis. AI can look at charts and say, yep, she's going to have cancer in 2 years. We can't do that as humans. We're too biased in our perspective. And so
Yeah.
I just think technology gives you the answer to so many of life's great mysteries, Leslie, of life's great. That's my perspective for sure.
But I think that's what you talked about there. Yeah, I mean, you talked about when you're building a business and you need to be able to scale, you have to use technology because, like you said, we can be the smartest people as much as we want, but we can't just say, "Hey, I'm going to superimpose my thinking process, my thought process on all these other people, and they're just going to fall too." No, like you said, that's why technology is so important in business, so we can track trends, see what's happening, and then we could do something about it. Mm.
And the workload, my goodness, I think about when I was in high school doing papers, like even word processing when I was, fifth, sixth, seventh grade, it was just coming out.
Yeah.
And you would think about even spell check. I mean, think about how much better our lives are today because of spell check and grammar check.
Hmm.
We'd
Yeah.
all be looking like a bunch of idiots out there if we didn't have spell check telling us how to spell encourage correctly or celebrate correctly. But
Exactly.
it's the small things that we take for granted. My iWatch, when a crisis occurs, I know it's happening. I just feel
Hmm.
like we think about workload, especially in our industry in aesthetics. These nurses and doctors are working so hard. They're owning a business. They're injecting patients. They're dealing with follow up. They're doing SEO. They're doing Instagram. They're doing
Hmm.
9 million things a minute. And if technology can take even one of those tasks and automate it and reduce it by a minute or 2 minutes times 15 tasks times 3 weeks times 6 weeks,
Hmm.
they've saved tens, 20s, hundreds of hours because of a simple app on their phone or a simple
Exactly.
word processing feature or a calculator that's inside of an app to do their disport conversion. Things are
Yeah.
small to us, but they're massive to someone who's working in the business all day long.
Definitely. And I love that you're kind of on the pulse of that. And so a question that I kind of have for you, because aesthetic record has been around, and you could tell the audience, for how long has that aesthetic record been around?
It's really been public, if you want to say that. We came out of the closet about 2019, but we've been up and running since 2016-ish. So
Yeah,
we had,
yeah.
the beginning was a frail state, but since 2019, full throttle.
Yeah, I mean, there's growing pains in every business, and I think that is such a wonderful thing that you get to experience with the industry because there's a lot of new people coming into the industry now, and they're, you call them the freshmen med spa owners that are coming in, and it's a newer generation, and they need different things. A med spa owner that's been operating for 20 years has different needs than someone that is opened up within the past 3 years because the mentality is different, the way they acquire their clients are different. I've even seen med spa owners that don't have a huge following on Instagram, but they are booked and busy and staffed and everything. But someone will be like, oh, they don't have a pop in Instagram, so they must not be it. You're like, you do not see their balance sheet.
Oh, that's so true. Well, I think online booking is a prime example of this because online booking to me, I'm a millennial, almost 40, so I'm close to that tip top edge. But I was just reading a
Same
future
here.
study last week, or not last week, probably last month,
Mhm.
and it talked about millennials want to book online because we're working moms, we're busy, or we're in and out of our careers. We don't have time to
Yes.
call, practice, and wait on hold. And will you call me back and explain the procedures? And so, if you want to reach the audience who's in that 25 to 45 range, you got to
Mhm.
have online booking. And so, a lot of people who are vehemently opposed because when we interview them, about becoming a potential customer, like we hate online booking, with them to call the practice. They don't know what they're booking for. But when they call, they don't either. So it's the
Yeah.
same problem. It's just now we've taken an automation point to it where we can send them out confirmations and text messages, and
Mhm.
they can do it at four
Mhm.
o'clock in the morning if they want to. And it takes a load off the front desk. And so online booking is the number one place to find people who push back and they dig their heels in the sand. They're like, we are never going to do it. But then they put that
Wow.
little link on their website, the little book now button. They're like, oh my God, why didn't I do this 2 years ago, 3 years ago? It's like when you get toxin for the first time. I'm so scared of needles. And then you're like, why
Yeah.
was I
And then
scared
it's
of that?
done. And you're like,
I wasted 5 years looking haggard, and that took 2 seconds.
wow. Yeah.
Online booking and
Exactly.
getting toxin are the same thing. You just got to take the plunge and do it.
Yeah, and I find that really interesting because I know I've talked to, in the past couple of weeks, like different plastic surgeons and, med spa owners, and I've been kind of diving into the consultation process. And it's like, no business owner that's a med spa owner should be scared of someone booking without understanding what to do because if they're a new client or a new patient, it should be a consultation.
And it's a chance to educate. If they book the wrong
Yes.
thing, what a great opening as a sales rep, back in the day. I would love if you got it wrong because I had a reason to go in and tell you how you could have,
Hmm.
what you could do differently or different products. Like it's a reason to
Exactly.
have a conversation. It's a decision point for the patient. And if they
Yes.
book filler and they need toxin, great. Let's explain why they need both things. So to me,
Exactly.
that issue or that mistake, other than the time domain it takes for you to do a procedure, is a
Hmm.
welcome invitation for the practitioner to go educate them on what they should be getting, not what they actually booked for instead. So I agree with you totally. It's a great chance to connect.
Yeah, and then I do have to ask your opinion on that as a professional in tech and everything. Do you think that it's I don't know if the word is wise. I don't know what the word is, but do you think it's good for patients to be able to self book what procedures that they're getting? Do you know what I mean? Like, do you think it's wise for that to be an option in the first place?
Well, I think the good news is booking is not permanent. They can book
Yeah.
for going to the moon. They can book for whatever they want to book for. When they come
Mhm.
into practice, the provider's role, their ability to show themselves as the expert is to say, dear patient, I love that you booked for cold sculpting. What you really need is quo for your cellulite, or whatever the
Mm.
product is. I think
Yes.
that for the provider to be able to show their expertise right now in the industry today, when patients come in and say, I need 20 units, that's what she always does. Oh, no, don't go here. I heard that that's a dangerous area. For the provider to have a reason to say, oh, dear sweet patient, you think you're right, but unfortunately, I went to medical school. I went to nursing school. I'm the expert here. We're going to do
Yeah.
it my way. I think that's a great chance for the practice to show its thought leadership, its
Hmm.
dominance in the industry, to be able
Yeah.
to make those decisions for the patient. So for me, I don't find a risk in it other than a patient who has done preparation. They've,
Hmm.
if it's laser, they've gone out in the sun, they've been sunbathing all summer and they're coming in to get a laser, not a smart choice. In that
Hmm.
regard, a pre-instruction issue, I agree that the patient should be contacted and say, let's make sure it's the right thing for you. But otherwise,
Hmm.
I'm like, honey, roll the dice. If it's a 30-minute appointment, I can do a lot of things in 30 minutes. It'll be okay.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and that's very true. So, And so, as a in the role that you're in as a chief growth officer, I kind of just want to dig in a little bit more because it's really great to see that the company's doing well and you guys are killing it and everything. However, what were some of the biggest challenges that you had while building the trajectory of aesthetic record, and yeah, what are some of the differences you see between then and now?
The problems that we have are the problems that every business has, except for in technology, it multiplies itself. It's like rise of the machine. So when you build software, you need to build for 10 years from now. You need to build for, Facebook. When Mark Zuckerberg built it, you should build for when it takes off, for what it looks like in 2021. And
Mhm.
so when we built our software many, many years ago in 2016, it was built for a much smaller platform, a much smaller customer base, a much more limited set of features because it was just doing the bare necessities for med spa. Well, the industry is evolving rapidly. And so we have incurred what's called or incurred technical debt, which means basically we built for things that we could not accommodate at our current scale and scope had we not made significant infrastructure changes. So for
Mhm.
the last year, I've been working on the entire rebuilding of our app on the back end to accommodate. We have almost 2 million patients in our system. We have again
Wow.
3,000 clinics using it. We have 25,000 plus data points and features.
Hmm.
There's a tremendous load, like a massive load on our servers every day. And so my recommendation for anyone building a business on day one is build for your future self. Because if you don't, in the moment when things are going crazy and you're growing and it's exciting and so fun, it's like, time out. We've got to rebuild the infrastructure here. And you
Mhm.
lose momentum on that. You lose the beautiful part of growing because you've got to stop and clean up your mess. And so we're
Yeah.
fortunate to have 3 tech teams who work around the clock. They work all night long, they work all day to help us make up this debt and clean it up. But it's growing pains with anything. When you scale
Mhm.
so quickly, you have to catch up to what you thought you were building in the beginning and actually get it
Mhm.
right. So that's been the biggest challenge. The other part I would say, and you're finding this out as you get in the industry more and more, is when you become the face of a company in many ways, people want to deal with you. And this is the same for providers whose names are on the door. You've heard me talk about this. When your name is on the
Yes.
door, it's not
Yes.
healthy. I am not a person who self promotes much. It's
Mhm.
not my thing. I'm a big behind the scenes mover and pusher and shaker and doer. And
Mhm.
so as I've gone into this role, I've become much more of the face of aesthetic record, which means people want to talk to me. They want to DM me their problems about the system. They want to call me on the phone, text me, email me for help right
Mhm.
now. And I'm not the tech support team. I'm not going to be as responsive. I have other things happening. We have podcasts and conferences and videos and a giant company of things to run and manufacturers to deal with. And so
Yeah.
they want my full attention right now, which is great because they feel like we're family, right? That we're close and we're connected. And I love
Of
that part of the
course.
industry because we're all one big happy community, as Josh would say.
Yeah.
But unfortunately for me, it's also disadvantageous because it hurts the customer long term because they don't get the help
Mhm.
immediately. And so trying to extract myself from AR and make us two different things and get
Mhm.
the team really involved and promote other people to be the face of things and on camera. Vivian's a great example, our vendor relations manager.
Yeah,
She
she's
has her
wonderful.
own
I've seen
series.
her.
She's incredible. Trying to share the load, share the excitement because it can't always be on you as the face. And again, you can't
Mhm.
sell the company that way. You can't grow the company that way. It cannot be about you ever. It has to be about the overall company. So I think
Mhm.
as you grow quickly and if you're well known in some regard, I'm nothing like you guys. I'm not an influencer by any means, but people, know my name. It becomes a
Yeah.
hazard to your business. It's a discredit and a disruption for your business.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you talk about that. Because I've read things. I guess they call it bottlenecking. It become like the bottleneck of the business, and and that's and this is something that I'm learning too with myself. It's like having a team. It's just like, okay, you might interact with me in some instance or what have you, but it's like for certain things this is who takes care of it, for other things this is who takes care of it, and like getting clients used to seeing other people very early on, so now they're like, okay, we have to talk to you and only you every time. So then you look at your phone and you have 1,000 text messages.
Every day, my voicemail is full every single day, and I've gotten where I don't answer my phone much because that one phone call will disrupt the whole day and it throws people into a crisis and a tailspin. And the good news is I have an incredible team who they crush it every single day. They rock
Mhm.
at their jobs. Like when it comes to talent, I have somehow assembled like the Avengers over here. We've got like Black Widow, we've got Spider-Man, like it's an incredible team. So I know
Yes.
that whoever I hand it off to, it'll be taken care of beautifully. And I think that's a big part. You have to know that when you come to that point and you are the bottleneck, to be able to delegate to capable, competent, invested humans is the one thing that you have to have that, or you'll never be able to get past that. You will always be the bottleneck for your company. You'll never grow out of it.
Exactly. It kind of goes back to what you talked about before. And you were saying, you have to build your business for what it's going to be 10 years from now, And I even think about that with many med spa owners when they're starting, everyone has access to them on their cell phone. Everyone has access to them in the DMs. And then they grow and they start to get busier. And then they can't even take a vacation because clients start to get angry. Like, oh, who are like, you're not going to be the one to do my injections. You're giving me Sally or Jenny or whoever. I don't know her. And that's a scary thing.
Well, that's why I'm so big on SOPs. I'm sure you've heard me say this. I'm obsessed with them. I just had a med spa owner in a few days ago in our office here, and she talked about, they all want to see me, but I've trained every provider the exact way that I do it. Our company name is on the technique, not my name, not anyone, no,
Mm-hmm.
not Sally's name or Janie's name. The company name is on the technique, because
Mm-hmm.
when they call and they're mad that I can't be there, I can say, but I've trained Sally. You've seen her with me when you were here last time. Remember, she was in the room with us looking at your lips as well. She'll be
Mm-hmm.
taking care of you from now on. She's a phenomenal injector. I think there's a place where you have to start to hand the baton over, but it takes
Yes.
very strategic thought. I'm a big believer in when you've got that core group of patients who only see you, bring that provider in the room with you. Let them meet each other. Let them hear about the experience, and they're a VIP. Oh, Sally, she's a VIP. We love her so much. Whatever that is, because then it feels like you're doing a white glove handoff, and it's not like I'm too busy for you, sis. See somebody else.
Too busy for you, sis. Yeah.
Everything is semantics. We're always selling.
Yeah.
What do they say? ABC, always be selling. We're always
Yeah.
persuading. We're always trying to change, the motion, the narrative. So I think you've got to do things like that. Even in our role here, in your role in your office, we have to do those things, or people will always want, because I'd want it too, to deal with the person who they think can make the right decision, or the biggest, most important decision for them.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So that white glove handoff, guys, you heard that. So Dr. Tiffany just said, if you're at the point where you need to expand, you need to take time for yourself. The white glove handoff is the way to go. Having the provider in the room with you, not just a random person showing up one day and saying, we're doing the procedure, not you.
Yeah, because if not, you can't get on a plane and travel to your new locations. You can't go meet with the private equity investor. You can't meet with your attorney or your banker or your risk management people. You're going to be stuck in that practice 24/7 till the day you die if you don't think about that. And, I see it. My dad owned companies. His name is all over the company. He can't retire ever because the company will die. I mean, I lived this firsthand. This is not like I'm looking at people judging them. I lived this life every day as a kid, still
Mm-hmm.
do. He's 66 years old and cannot retire because his entire life is wrapped up in a company that has his face on it, his name on it. And there's
Mm,
no getting out of that, guys. Trust me, none. When you're 66, you going to work that hard? Probably not. So
mm.
you've got to think about it today, because you'll be trapped in it forever if you don't.
Yeah, and you talk about the age 66, even from a dexterity standpoint, I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm an organist and a violinist as well. Like, super girl, the randomness abounds. That's
You
another
are
thing Josh and I have in common in music
fancy.
school.
Those are fancy. Those are like Ivy League, prestigious. I drive a Bentley instrument. Those
No,
are not for the faint of heart, my friend. Kudos to
no.
you. Musical genius is a sign of real genius. You know that, right? It's like, if you're all the genius people in the world have musical inclination. I have none. Just so you know, guys, I have zero musical ability. So what
But
does
you're
that
like
tell
a
you about me?
genius in tech, so stop. That's an instrument in itself. It's a language in itself. But the hands, like we can't. After not using them to do all of these scales and things like I used to do, it's like my fingers aren't the same, and it's like repetitive motions. That's something to think about. Like, do you really want to be the name on the door at 66 years old?
Pushing a syringe every day, that poor thumb of yours, carpal tunnel, that is real. I used to go into offices all the time and see people who are fresh off of surgery because they had been injecting for, 15, 20 years. Like, my thumbs finally gave out.
Mm,
Hands are tired. And I don't want, these people, as you and I both know, they work like dogs. They work so hard. They've built great businesses. They're successful. They're building enterprises. And
mm,
it's these small things that can just have these colossal catastrophic impacts that you don't see because you're, again, so busy building, and it sneaks up on you. I think risk is the same way. It sneaks up on you, and you don't know you need it until you have to have it, until you're desperate for it. So yeah,
Exactly.
scale, SOPs, technology, automate your process, clone yourself through other people and through their
Hmm.
expertise and their techniques, and teach them how to be like you. That's my best
Yeah.
advice.
Yeah, definitely. And if you could give the audience some insight, how can a newer business owner, or even one that has been kind of like fumbling along, they're doing well, but they know if one piece is removed, everything will crash, and they're trying to kind of recalibrate things. How would you say to start implementing, processes and systems? I think you call it SOP or whatever. If you want to define that for the audience too, but how do they even start getting on the pathway if they are just starting, or they're kind of messed up and like, okay, I have to make a change.
Well, so a standard operating process, in my opinion, is just the way that you do it every time. So if you're a single injector, you often think, well, I'm the only person doing it. Why do I need an SOP? I think you're maybe the most at risk, because if you're like me, you get busy, you do it a different way every time. Where did I put that thing? Where did I put that inventory? Where's that box again? And you are your own worst enemy. And so I think things that you do repetitively more than a few times, or that more than one person is doing repetitively, build a process. We do a lot of flow charts here, and when I click this will happen. Who's accountable to it? Who will check off on it? When it comes in the door, just
Mhm.
knowing who the players are, and not by name, but by role, because the people can change, the roles will not. So don't get caught up in that madness. I think when you define the process as a new injector or a new med spa owner, that's step one. And the place I would tell you that's the most at risk is inventory. If people
Mhm.
say to me, what's the one thing I'm going to do to fix my practice today? Is count your inventory, track your inventory.
Mhm.
Traceability is a patient safety concern. It is a
Mhm.
COGS, cost of goods sold concern. It's a balance sheet concern. It's an asset shrinkage, spoilage concern. Inventory is the most expensive thing in your practice. And if you're
Mhm.
not watching inventory like you're watching your social media, start doing it. Impressions don't pay the bills, but inventory on the shelf can, because it can be injected into a patient and can pay great dividends long term. So I think
Mhm.
my first stop, people's always inventory, and then understand charting. If you're a med spa owner who's thinking about even growing to the second provider, you're a
Mhm.
single going to two, being able to see each other's charts, look at each other's training protocols, treatment protocols, inventory usage, having a medical director being able to sign off on things from far away if he or she's not in the office that day.
Mhm.
I think the charting, we lose sight of the medical part of our jobs at times because we just assume it's going to be done, right? At the base
Mhm.
level, we're good providers, we're good medical people. But the charting aspect ties back to inventory, what you're going to charge them on the invoice, what
Mhm.
product they actually had in case an adverse event or a problem occurred. Is it hyaluronidase? Is it Radiesse? Is it dermal filler? What are you going to do? Your
Mhm.
entire practice reaction to an adverse event is based on what was injected in the patient, and they never know. We know that the patients never have a clue what they've received. They just know it was in a
Yeah.
syringe. It was in a syringe, and she loves the product, whatever it was. Well, she loves them all because she's selling them to you,
Yeah.
but we never know what it really is. And so I think inventory and charting are the places where the wheels many times fall off because they get overlooked as just like the bare necessity, but they are the things that will sink your ship faster than anything else.
Wow. And so at what point should, in your professional opinion, so should a provider, go about getting an EMR? Should it be from day one when they open, or maybe when they like, oh, I'm actually going to be in business? Like, at what point do you think it's the best time to go ahead and invest in that type of system?
6 months before the doors open. That's my recommendation
Mm.
for you. Or 3 months at minimum, because before you see your first patient, you need to understand your services. What do you want to offer? What do you want to charge? How much time do you need? It forces you to plan your business. It forces you to get a business plan that is methodical and well thought out. Because if you have to start putting into your EMR your invoice disclaimer, your refund policy, how you'll treat patients who don't show up for cancellations, how you'll think about patient retention and sending out emails and newsletters, all the things that you forget to do in the beginning, it will
Mhm.
force you to at least have a base level plan so that
Mhm.
when you start on day one, you're buttoned up. No one wants to
Yes.
buy a product that's not buttoned up, right? No one wants to go
Yeah.
into the doctor's office and like, well, I don't know if we do that here or not. Let me ask somebody else. Like, that's not a good sign, guys. So I think we always say at least 90 days before you open your business, start building your EMR, start building
Yeah.
the practice management part of it, because you need all that to really think about what should you put on the shelf. If you're not going to do a lot of toxin, don't go out and buy every product. If you don't have time for laser, don't go buy a laser device. Think about your business as far as your niche, how you want to grow, where you want to grow, what role you're going to play, and you can build around that very quickly, frankly, in an EMR. And I think the other part of it, Leslie, for us at least, in AR, shameless plug, is it's $16 a month. You get all these things: telehealth, online booking, inventory, you know, integrations with your CRM, all these things for $16. I pay more for that for my font app to be able to do cursive on Instagram. Like I pay more per month for the eFont app. You could pay for all of that with AR. And so people who would say historically price is an issue, that's why we've always been low priced. We've always been a low cost provider because we wanted to make sure that nobody could ever say, I have to sacrifice being good at my job, being a great business person, being a great provider because I can't afford an EMR. I don't want that to ever be an issue. And so we took the not altruistic, we are certainly for profit organization, but our goal is to make every provider legally and compliantly responsible because of their system. Being able to say in a court of law, I take great charting documents, notes, paperwork, etc. And it's not going to cost them a fortune. They're going to mortgage their house to pay for their EMR system. And so for me, before you ever get started, if you want to be disciplined, it will force you to be disciplined from day one.
And that's really great. And so it's so customizable and everything. So tell us more about how you guys build out the systems and some of the capabilities for larger practices that might have few different providers and lots of different products and services. And tell us more about kind of an enterprise look for someone who's thinking, okay, I'm starting with the smaller type thing now, but in the future I know that I'm going to be building out my chassis.
We've actually begun to specialize in that in the past 2 years. We have clinics that have 85 locations or 60 locations. We have what's called an EMP, an enterprise management portal. And so if you're a franchise who is not related at all, like you own one, I own one, Joe owns one, not the same patients, nothing, but we have the same name on the door, the same types of things. We build those sort of overall portals for you so that one owner can go in and look at his or her spas only. Corporate can look at all the different spas and all the different activities. If they're sharing providers back and forth, they can go back and forth across different locations, but the patients are always separate. The books are separate. The numbers are separate. Everything is separate. Because what we're finding more and more as the industry grows is we have MSOs now who have groups that are not related at all. We have franchises, we have chains, we have multiple location, single spas that are growing. So we've really built out a way for you to do either one owner with 10 locations that are all related or 10 owners with one corporation at the top. So we've really tried to grow and scale the way that we treat customers based on the way that their business is changing. I think the big part of that is a medical director component. So many of these cases, an MSO has one medical director across 10 locations. He or she can log in at any point in the day and sign charts, do good faith exams, do virtual consults. And it's very easy, one click. It's not a lot of learning passwords and learning logins and different portals and things. It's a very simple one-stop shop. So the bigger businesses looking at inventory trends across locations, NPS scores, am I happy? Am I sad? Do I like it here? Those kinds of numbers, doing comparative trends and things. So we do a lot with that. We're able to clone the accounts too. So if you have a really good clinic that you think this is the model citizen, you can just clone that setup over and over and over again so that it's always the exact same at location A as is location B without having to go set it up again. But our team takes care of all the setup if they want to do that, all the training. We'll put in your consents for you. We'll give you consulting advice on this name of the service doesn't make any sense, or it's too long, or this is kind of crazy, or what the heck were you thinking?
Yes.
But with memberships especially, that's really helpful too, because they can go to multiple locations and use their membership credits or their free services. We've really baked in a recurring revenue model too for the bigger groups, the bigger locations, bigger, 3, 4, 5 location med spas. That recurring revenue is their cash flow cycle. As the bills come due, the monthly membership revenue hits, so they can always get the bills paid. And there's always a cushion there. They know if not one more butt sits in a chair all month long, I can at least make this much money in cash flow to pay the bills on day one. So we've really thought about from a business owner standpoint, what makes you succeed beyond being a great injector or a great medical facility? What's the business part of it you have to be successful? But whether you're nurse Sally with one location or nurse Sally with 15 locations, we've got what you need. At least we hope we do. We think we do. We've got we're helping you get it done.
You heard that, guys? Dr. Tiphany has what you need. I'm just kidding.
We've got what you need, baby. We can write a song about that.
I know, right? Making jingle. No, I'm just kidding.
You can play an instrument. I'll do the singing and the lyrics. It'll be
exactly. Get my violin out the corner. No, let me not do this nonsense now. But so, And so that's so great because as a business owner, like you said, as they build over time, as they get larger, they have those things to look forward to. That's like, okay, this was the great spot. And now I'm going to open spot number two, spot number three. It's not reinventing the wheel. It's just like your team is plug and play, boop boop boop, and they're ready to go. I think, and that feels great. And I also what I have heard about you guys is that you guys do a lot of consulting beyond even just the EMR, and you're really helping answer like business questions. And is that just something that's like built in with the people that service the accounts, or like how does that work? I don't think it's official, is it?
Well, it works that way because we can't stand to let people make bad choices if we can help
Yeah,
them. I can't stand to watch a train wreck happen if we can help pump the brakes. And so
yeah.
most of it is really altruism. To use that word again, is like we don't charge for a lot of it. It's just our team saying, I've done this before with accounts
Hmm.
and I've seen the catastrophe that it will cause. Let me tell you how to
Hmm.
not do that, how to not make
That's
that
great.
mistake again. So much of it is taking what we've learned over, the setup of thousands of accounts to say, when you do your membership this way, make it so confusing and you got to have points and this and that. Patients are going to be so confused by this and you're never going to be able to execute it. Don't do it. Make it
Hmm.
simple. It's more of just the whiplash that we've received from all the wrecks that we've been part of, the things that have been a little kooky. So it's more of that. But we also do account manager plans. So if you want consulting advice, on a regular increment, looking at your trend analysis. But as I mentioned, you can tell so much from the system. I can look and see memberships are going up or down. You're giving too many discounts. Like for instance, that account this past week, they're giving 55% in discounts and they want to know why they're not
Hmm.
making any money. Well, you're giving away half of your profit to a discount. That's why you're not making any money.
Wow.
But they don't often look at all the different KPIs or the key performance, indicators to say this is breaking down and where is it happening? Because we're so quick in the system, we can find those reports really easily to say, I've put these three reports together and I've overlaid them, and I can tell you your gap is right here. This
Mhm.
provider is giving away the house. She's giving away friends and family discounts every day. She's giving away all of your Botox for no cost. She's doing
Mhm.
special discounts. We can see a lot of that just by, again, the simple aggregation of data because of the fact it's all in a technology platform. So we
Yeah.
do a lot of it just because we want customers to be successful. If they're successful, they stay, they refer other people to our business. Their
Mhm.
success is our success. So we can't take the risk of them suffering if we could, play a part in solving the mystery for them.
Yeah, definitely. And there's also just something that I wanted to, ask you about too. There's a quote that I read, and it said, it is what we know already that often prevents us from learning. And that's by Claude Bernard. And I just wanted to get your take on that because I know that people sometimes have, especially these nurses that, or, that come from the hospital setting, or they have a certain preconceived notion as to what owning a med spa is and what goes into it. So, how do you think that quote kind of relates to the industry as a whole based on your experience?
I think it's really twofold. On one hand, I would say when they come from the hospital, as far as like on my end of the business, they're pleasantly surprised at how easy things are. They love it. Like, oh my gosh, this is not a legacy system from 1995. This is actually like modern day technology. There's an iPad app. Are you crazy? So we find that they're much more eager to invest in our technology part of it. The part that we see break down is that people get very stuck in their process within the practice. I want to check them in like this. I want to do this with them and this with them. And it's like, I get that you want to do all that, but nothing in your business supports that action. You've got to change the process. You can't be the same person that's doing, the pie making and owning the pie shop. If you want to keep growing your business, you need to change the workflow. And so we spend a lot of time explaining to people who love to fight with us about it because we're not the provider, and I get that, but that, a simple workflow, you don't need to be a medical professional to understand workflow. If a patient
Yeah,
has to go crisscross zigzag to get things done, they're worn out with your practice. And so
yeah,
unlearning those behaviors, I have found to be the most challenging part of a med spa ownership is like unlearning how they've
yes.
always done it to say you cannot scale how you've done it. You cannot
Hmm.
scale your process because it's not going to work with 15 people in the practice. You don't have enough rooms, enough beds, enough supplies. You just don't have it. So I
Yeah.
think that's the part of it that we get in our own mind that our way is the best way. I do it all
Hmm.
the time as well. I'm forever guilty for that. And we have a hard time unlearning. I think
Yeah.
that's a big part too, as you think about learning technology, learning a skill set, learning CMEs, to go to a
Hmm.
conference and learn how to inject in a new way. We get so excited about that. Like that seems so fun to learn a new indication and get so behind contour or quo or whatever, M scope, whatever it is. But then when it
Hmm.
comes to things like how do you run your business, again, our heels dig in the sand and we plant a flag somewhere that's like, we ain't doing it. And so I think that there's like a disconnect between the things that aren't so sexy. People don't like to unlearn. They want to figure it out. But we fight it every day, and we make breakthroughs. We eventually
Mhm.
say, just try it one day and see if you like it. And they're like, oh my gosh, we saved
Yeah.
25 minutes per patient yesterday. It's like, yeah, we told you. You just listen to us. But we're stuck in our ways. We all are. Learning agility
Mhm.
is hard. As we get older, it becomes even more challenging to learn and grow all the things at once. And so
Mhm.
you cling to what you know. And when you get nervous or scared, you go back to what you know. Even if you fixed your problem, when things start to seem a little dicey, inherently as humans, we go back to what we feel safe doing. That's the thing that we've done
Yeah.
for 25 years, not the thing that we're doing for 25 months. So our brains wire back to safety, back to, where we feel like we can survive. So I think we've got
Mhm.
to reprogram our neurons to invest in the new method. And if it works, even when it sucks, Leslie, even when it
Mhm.
hurts and you're like, this is awful, but I
Yeah.
cannot give up. I have to keep pushing through. That's when the magic happens. That uncomfortable, the uncomfortable spot where the world is ending, that's when you grow and you change and you develop
Mhm.
and you get better. So you've got to be willing to unlearn and to take a look at what you're doing right now and say, like I'm doing, are you the bottleneck? And if the answer is yes, change it. That's the
Yeah.
only path forward.
Yeah.
I'm
Wow.
like preaching like Billy Graham. Sorry, guys.
I mean, I'm here for it. Like, I'm a PK. Oh,
I'll take communion when this is over. I'm just kidding.
exactly. Someone's gonna be like, Leslie, this was a very sacrilegious, blasphemous episode.
Sorry,
Um,
guys.
sorry, but so with that, I if you want to get personal for a second, and I know we're kind of wrapping down here, I do want to ask you about that. The discomfort. Yeah, and you said like the discomfort is when you really grow, when you push through that discomfort. So like, can you relate to us like a personal story of something that was so excruciatingly uncomfortable and you were like, what the heck am I doing? And then you push through and you're like, wow. Like,
My entire life from birth. No, I I was telling another person this on a podcast recently. Like I live in the pain. I live for the pain. I'm a survivalist. So for me, I don't have a choice but to constantly grow and evolve, especially in technology. Growing and learning a business that you weren't previously, at a skill set level to run, and you have to figure it out. I've always been very good at being uncomfortable. I mentioned my dad owned companies from the time I was little bitty. I had to just figure it out. Kids got to go do fun things and vacation and have a great, childhood. We were working, we were busy, we were trying to keep the business going. And so I've always just known that no matter what it takes, you do it. No matter how much it hurts, how much it sucks. If you don't put in the work today, when everyone else is out having fun and enjoying it, there will come a time when that's over for them and then it's your turn to do it. You get to be the one to enjoy it because you put the work in early. And I mention all the time to people that, a residency is if you're a doctor or a fellowship, you make no money. You work your butt off. You're operating 24 hours a day if you're a surgeon, but you know that if you can survive that miserable few years, you get to do what you love forever in your own
yeah.
practice, under your own guise, under your own rules, and you get to make your own money. But that small investment of pain and of torture will help propel your career tenfold because those who didn't do it will never go as far as you because they're not willing to put in the work to do it. So I just feel like there's a moment where I've taken pay cuts. I took $100,000 pay cut at one point, a significant pay cut to take a job because I wanted to learn the skill that was in that job that I couldn't learn anywhere else. I've taken jobs that were random, that I was beaten up every day, emotionally, physically, just over it. But I had to learn the skill. And I knew that if I didn't do it there, I would never learn it. I would never have the chance again to learn it. And so I think in your life, there are days where never get too big for your britches. Never think that you're above that. I've got to make this certain amount of money. I need my honorarium. I need my this, my that. Because at some point, somebody else will take the pain. They'll take the punishment for you. And then you'll look up and they'll leap ahead of you because they've done whatever it takes to get there. So, from a personal level, I've always been very comfortable there. If I am not in a state of survival, I am panicked that I'm doing something wrong, that I'm complacent. I need to
Wow.
feel like there's constant chaos around me or panic around me or just sheer, I don't know, really just sheer chaos. Because if
Mhm.
not, I don't feel like I'm in a place where I can make an impact. So I prefer it to be. I'm a wartime CEO. I'm not a peacetime CEO. I can tell you that without a doubt. If a company is humming and beautiful and smooth, I'm not the girl you call. When things are in the fiery zones of death, I'm the person that will walk in and be like, hey, this looks like a cluster. I'm here to help. That's more how I like to operate.
Wow, I really really do love that. Thanks for sharing that experience, like how you think about things, because that's so true, because even when you do get to that zenith, or I can't pronounce it, zenith, whatever, you get to that top point, you have to keep working, and you have to go back. And I know Tim Grover says this in Winning, and I talked about this another time, but it's like, once you win something, you have to go back to square one and go back to the bottom of the hill and look up again and say, okay, it's time to climb again. Because if you don't do that, you just stay on the peak looking like, oh, I won, I did something good. You're going to die up there, and the crows are going to come and start snatching you up.
Well, to use a sports metaphor, which I don't usually do, but look at Michael Jordan. At the
Hmm.
pinnacle of his basketball career, he went to play baseball. Like he went to play baseball. He's the most famous, most skilled, gifted basketball player in the history of mankind. By the way, Kobe, and anyway, I won't go on that. MJ, he's our boy, but he
Yeah.
went back to play baseball for a new challenge, for
Yeah.
a new pain level, a new learning to survive. So if MJ can do it, so can you. No one's too good. But I think to
Hmm.
your point, as you go up in your career and you get more and more esteemed in your level, money means less because you have enough. At some point,
Hmm.
money is a diminishing return on satisfaction.
Oh yeah.
You can't keep paying people to be happy. It doesn't work that way. We see it with sales reps in the industry all the time. They're making God knows what, and they're miserable because they're dying on the vine working. So at some
Mm.
point, it has to be about more than money, which I think is like the challenge, the mystery of it, unlocking new skills, pushing
Mhm.
yourself. Like I derive so much joy from that, far
Yeah.
more than I do my paycheck. I never even look at the
Yeah.
paycheck when it hits the bank. I have no idea what I make right now. Couldn't even tell you. Don't have a
That's
clue.
wonderful.
But I know what
Yeah.
I've learned this month. I know what I've done to grow as an employee and as an
Hmm.
employer. Like those are the things that are important to me. And I know if I do that enough, the money will come. That'll figure itself out. If you're good at your
Yeah.
job, people will pay for your skill set. I promise you
Of
they will.
course. Yeah.
So it's whatever's important to you as a person. And for me, it's like the mystery, like solving weird challenges and mysteries is really fun for me.
That's awesome. And so, Dr. Tiffany, if you could leave us with this last question, as what advice would you give to um, a person who wants to get into this industry to start their own medical aesthetics practice?
Well, I heard Nikki Riviere say this the other day, and she talked about when I got into this industry, I went and invested my time to learn. I didn't wait for people to come find me and teach me. I went and found it and learned it. And I think that's the key to it. You've got to be aggressive here. You've got to go out and seek your own opportunities, pay for your training, pay for a business class, pay for Leslie's Insight, pay to have a great attorney or a great accountant or CPA. Anything in life requires you to invest. When you go to college, you invest. And so I think as you come into this industry, people seem to think that we are like a boutique thing, that we're like a funsy, moonlighting industry. We're a very big part of medicine. We have a tremendous impact on people's lives, on their psychological well being, on their physical well being. And approach this like you would approach anything else. Invest in your training, in your business, spend the time to learn and treat it as if it's a real thing. And so I think waiting for things to come to you in our industry right now, as fast as it's moving, as talented as these owners are now and these injectors are now, you've got a carpe diem. And that means digging in, finding, what turns you on and going to get that for yourself. And as you
Yeah.
open your business, think about that. Do what you love to do and don't do everything for everyone. Don't be
Yes.
the one-stop shop. Be great at whatever it is that turns you on, builds fire in your belly, and go be
Yes.
amazing at that thing. And once you hit the part of that you feel like you're in stride, maybe then take on something else. But I think people try to do a shotgun approach most often in our industry. Like I'm going to buy everything and do everything. And it really detracts from, again, like learning, where do you want to go train? Where do you want to invest your money? Because if you do that in your practice, you'll be more successful than doing a little bit of stuff for a whole lot of people. So I'm a big believer in, know your role and dig deep and learn. That's, for me, that's the best advice I could possibly give.
And that's excellent advice. I was talking to a plastic surgeon last night, and we were talking about this because he's also like a pianist, and very, interesting. And it's just like, and he specializes in his practice. It's like going deep in something is is so much more. It's just the process of going deep is so much better than going wide, because everybody wants your time and go wide. But going
Think about
deep,
marketing alone. If you can
oh,
market 5 procedures and not 55 procedures, how much better you can do an SEO, pay per click, the words that you're going to use, the
oh yeah,
website, the way that you look at your entire business, the voice, everything can be so much more specific. And
Mhm.
your demographic, your patient can all be very specific. If you know
Yes.
who you are and what you believe in, it will take the
Mhm.
workload off of you in such a giant way. And again, you can't scale yourself, you can't scale your time or your expertise.
Mhm.
So find a way to do what you love to do in a meaningful but yet methodical way. And I think it will pay dividends for you as a practice.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Tiphany, for your time today. And please tell our listeners how they can find Aesthetic Record on the internet.
Yeah, go to aestheticrecord.com, or you can do at aesthetic record, and you can find me at Dr. Tiphany Hall. I'd love to follow and love to see you guys. Send me a DM, and I'd love to connect with any of you. So thanks for having me on today, Leslie. I've had a great time talking with you, as I always do. Lots of laughs, lots of fun as always.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much. And we'll talk soon, guys.